Welcome to the beautiful love story of Diep and James. This is not just an ordinary wedding, it is the perfect culmination of a long journey filled with love, challenges, and patient waiting. The story unfolds on a bright morning in an ancient church, where sunlight streams gently through colorful stained glass windows, casting a soft glow on the bride Diep in her pure white gown, and the groom James, looking dashing in his elegant black suit. Together, they pledged their lifelong devotion, exchanged wedding rings amid the heartfelt tears of family and friends, and sealed their vows with a sacred kiss beneath the ringing church bells. This story is beautiful not only in its joyful moments but also in the genuine, deep, and enduring love between two people brave enough to choose and cherish each other until the very end. If you love heartfelt, romantic, and poetic stories like this, don't forget to like the video to support us. Subscribe to the channel to follow Diep and James's love journey. And share to spread this sweet love story with more people. Thank you for being with us, and we look forward to seeing you in the next stories. That morning, the sky stretched high and clear, like polished crystal. Fluffy white clouds drifted slowly across the steeple of the old church, which now stood ready to witness the most sacred moment in the lives of two people. The soft golden light of early day filtered through the stained glass windows, casting vibrant hues across the stone floor below. St. Maria Church was silent and solemn, yet filled with a quiet anticipation that stirred every heart present. Inside, the wooden pews were already filled with guests dressed in their finest. Gentle murmurs faded away as the ceremony neared. Soft white and blush roses lined the aisle, carefully arranged with satin ribbons, each petal, each fold, carrying the love and care of a journey shared. The air was laced with the faint scent of fresh flowers, mingled with the warm scent of aged wood and a touch of incense. A choir waited quietly in the balcony, ready to raise their voices in joy. At the altar stood James, tall and poised, emotion playing in his eyes. He wore a tailored black suit, simple but elegant, perfectly matching the calm morning light. The sunlight kissed the edge of his cheek, highlighting a strong jaw softened by emotion. His hands were gently clasped in front of him, steadying himself against the tide of feelings rising within. But his eyes, deep, unwavering, were fixed on one place, the end of the aisle, where the grand doors of the church remained half-closed, waiting to reveal the moment he'd been dreaming of. Then, precisely as the sunlight bathed the doorway in golden light, the first notes of canon in D began to play, tender, graceful, and reverent. The doors of the church slowly swung open, and brilliance flooded the space. Diep appeared, radiant as a morning bloom catching the first light of day. She wore a pristine white wedding dress, delicate lace framing her shoulders, the long train gliding effortlessly along the stone floor. Her hair was pinned in a graceful bun, accented by tiny fresh flowers, and a sheer veil trailed behind her like mist. The morning sun bathed her face, giving her an ethereal glow, and her eyes sparkled with the light of joy and peace. She walked arm in arm with her father, his hair silvered with age but his posture proud and strong. He held her hand gently yet firmly, Every step they took down the aisle filled with love, memories, and unspoken emotion. The guests watched in stillness, holding their breath, as if not to disturb the sacred beauty of the moment. James could barely breathe. It wasn't just her beauty that overwhelmed him, it was the way she looked at him. In her eyes was everything he'd ever hoped for: love, trust, and the quiet promise of forever. As Diep reached the altar, her father softly placed her hand into James's. It was a moment of deep meaning, a father entrusting his daughter to the man she chose. James bowed deeply in gratitude, his voice almost a whisper, "Thank you, sir." Then he turned to Diep and took her hand. Their eyes met, and the world faded away. They didn't need words, their hearts were already speaking. The priest stepped forward with a gentle smile, ready to begin the ceremony. But to James, the moment Diep walked into the church that morning was already eternity. The atmosphere inside the church fell into a sacred silence, as if all of creation was holding its breath. Morning light continued to stream through the colorful stained glass windows, casting soft hues upon the couple standing before the altar. The choir had quieted, and every guest's eyes were now fixed on James and Diep, who stood hand in hand, eyes locked, hearts full. The priest, with a warm and solemn voice, began the ceremony. "We gather here today, in the presence of God and this sacred congregation, to witness the holy union of James and Diep, two souls, two lives, who now become one." A gentle breeze stirred the sheer white curtains near the tall arched windows. In the middle of it all stood Diep, her eyes shimmering, lips gently pressed together, her emotions barely contained. Her hand trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the overwhelming rush of love and joy. James, sensing her emotion, gently squeezed her hand in reassurance. At that moment, nothing else existed, only the two of them, and the promises they were about to make. Turning to Diep, the priest spoke with quiet authority. "Diep, do you take James to be your husband, to love him, comfort him, honor and keep him, in sickness and in health, in joy and in sorrow, for all the days of your life, until death do you part?" Diep didn't answer immediately. She looked into James's eyes, the man she had loved with all her heart, who had stood beside her through every storm, who had waited patiently without complaint. A soft smile formed on her lips. Her voice, calm and radiant like the morning light, filled the space between them. "I do." A soft murmur of emotion rippled through the guests. James pressed his lips together, taking a deep breath to steady his voice. Then the priest turned to him. "James, do you take Diep to be your wife, to love her, protect her, remain faithful to her, in good times and bad, in strength and in weakness, for all the days of your life, until death do you part?" James looked at Diep, and in his eyes, tears were beginning to form, tears not of sorrow, but of joy too profound for words. And yet, he smiled, a smile that Diep would remember for the rest of her life. "I do, with all my heart, and for all my life." The church bells rang out just then, as if the heavens themselves were rejoicing. Next came the ring exchange. The priest blessed the rings and handed them to the couple. James took the delicate gold band, lifted Diep's left hand, and gently slid the ring onto her finger. His hand trembled slightly, but the ring fit perfectly, as if it had always belonged there. In a husky whisper, he said, "This ring is my promise to you, a symbol of my eternal love." Diep picked up James's ring, a simple but elegant design. As she placed it on his finger, their eyes met again, and it was as though the world disappeared into that moment. "I choose you, today, and forever," she whispered. The guests could barely contain their emotions. Tears were shed, not from sorrow, but from witnessing something truly beautiful. It felt as though they weren't merely attending a wedding, but standing at the edge of something timeless, a love story built on trust, devotion, and the quiet strength of two hearts choosing each other, completely and forever. After the vows were spoken and the wedding rings exchanged, a sacred silence embraced the entire church, as if the heavens themselves wished to hold this moment a little longer. The priest smiled warmly, his eyes quietly moved. He stepped forward with the Bible in his hands, his voice resonating gently through the timeless space. "By the power vested in me and in the presence of God, I now pronounce you husband and wife. From this moment on, James and Diep, you are united as one heart, one soul, one life in the grace of the Lord." He nodded gently, eyes filled with kindness. "You may now kiss the bride." A wave of warmth and joy swept through the church. Morning sunlight streamed through the tall stained glass windows, cascading onto Diep's hair, making her glow like an angel. James reached up and cupped her face with both hands, his gaze locked on hers, filled with love. Diep softly closed her eyes and tilted her head up, waiting. And then, before 100 witnesses, in the light of day, James kissed her. It wasn't a fiery kiss, but one filled with reverence, soft, deep, and sacred. It was a kiss that held every silent promise, every year of waiting, every tear and every dream. As they gently pulled apart, thunderous applause filled the church. Guests rose to their feet, clapping joyously. Some wept openly. James's mother wiped tears from her eyes as she clutched her husband's arm. Diep's closest friends embraced, whispering through their smiles, "It finally happened." Laughter, joy, and blessings wove through the air like a celebration of light. Just then, the great church bells began to ring. Their echo rolled through the morning sky, resounding, solemn and glorious. Each toll marked a beginning, not just an ending, a heavenly chorus for two souls now bound forever. James and Diep turned toward the guests. With fingers entwined, they walked slowly down the rose-lined aisle. On either side, friends and family tossed petals and ribbons into the air, tiny bursts of joy rising like sunlight scattered through leaves. Music began to swell, and laughter mixed with the rhythm of clapping, creating a symphony of happiness. Diep beamed with joy, her eyes bright with emotion. She glanced back one last time at the altar, where they had made their vows, exchanged rings, and kissed as husband and wife. James gently squeezed her hand, a wordless promise in his touch. Outside, a golden sky welcomed them. The air was crisp and clear. Birds soared above the old steeple, and the white wedding car waited, decorated with fresh roses and soft silk ribbons. But neither of them rushed. Instead, they paused for a few seconds on the stone steps of the church, turning to each other once more, and smiled. Because they knew, this was the beginning. Not the ending of their love story, but the first page of a new book, one they would write together, filled with trust, patience, laughter, and the quiet beauty of everyday life. Diep leaned her head against James's shoulder, and he pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead, like a silent vow carved deep within his soul. No matter how the world may change, this love will remain exactly as it was the day you walked into that church. Hand in hand, they stepped down the stone stairs, leaving the sacred place where they made their promises, and stepping into a lifetime of shared moments, side by side. The love story of Diep and James is a beautiful testament to the power of genuine love and patience. From the very first moments to the solemn wedding ceremony in the church, every detail radiates elegance, romance, and deep emotion. Diep in her pure white gown and James in his sharp black suit create an image that is both classic and modern, perfectly reflecting the harmony of two kindred souls. The vows and wedding rings are more than mere rituals. They symbolize a strong commitment and a love that endures through all challenges. Especially moving is the sacred kiss beneath the ringing church bells, marking a hopeful and faithful new beginning. This story reminds us that true love is always the foundation for a happy and fulfilling life.